What's going on, guys? I am super excited today because we are headed to the Galapagos Islands. I've been 2 times before, but it never gets old. The Amazon is one of the harder places in the world to shoot wildlife photography, but the Galapagos Islands is probably the easiest. So after a couple days of challenging photography in the jungle, I'm excited to get on this plane. Morten, are you excited for the islands?
Yeah, definitely.
You don't sound that excited.
No, that's because I'm a little nervous about this one right now.
Don't worry about it. The camera gear fear of flying. Morton's camera bag is a solid 12 kg, and mine's about the same. But luckily, Avianca doesn't seem to notice or care, and we're off on our sunrise flight to the Galapagos Islands. Gracias. Whew, we made it to the Galapagos Islands. I am so stoked to be back. We're gonna go meet, I guess, the bus and then cruise on to our yacht. We have like a luxury yacht. Hola, ¿qué más? Por allá? Listo. Upon arrival, we washed our shoes off in a disinfectant to protect this delicate ecosystem. And then we popped on a shuttle bus, then a quick little ferry, and then another bus to take us from the airport island of Baltra to the wonderful island of Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is fascinating. One side of the island is almost completely desert, and the other half is almost rainforest-esque. And this time of year, up in the highlands of this beautiful plot of land lives an endemic species from another age. Okay, I always joke that the Galapagos Islands are the easiest place for wildlife photography because I think they are, but it's sometimes overwhelming. We're here now on the way to our boat at a giant tortoise refuge. The tortoises are basically wild everywhere in this part of the island, and you just see them all the time. There's like roadblocks full of tortoises. And it is easy to photograph them because they don't move very fast, but it is very hard. I'm going to turn around because the light's getting harsh in that direction. It's very hard to get really good photos just because they don't do anything that exciting. So I try to do 3 different things to try to get good photos of animals that are really cool but maybe not that exciting. One is I like to get really low. I like to get to their eye level. The second thing is I like to create dimension. So I like to put things in the foreground or maybe just shoot a really shallow depth of field. And the final thing is I'm looking for background and I'm looking for soft, even light. The light right now is a little bit harsh. So when it is, I'm trying to find even light. In today's video, I want to talk about wildlife photography composition. It's a skill that I definitely haven't mastered, but I think I'm getting better at it. And one thing I do when I'm struggling is I lean on a couple different rules. The one I focus on most is getting to eye level, even if that means laying down in the grass where the tortoise poo is abundant and the fire ants are stinging. Down here, the wildlife comes alive. These tortoises are majestic, and photographing them from human eye level makes them appear small and lesser. They deserve better than that. Trying to maybe work some of the landscape into the photo. I like to do a lot of detail photography when it comes to animals, but I'm trying to get better at working in the landscape because the nature around the animal is just as important as the animal itself in a lot of cases. It needs its habitat. So there's this beautiful tree here. I don't know how much of it I'm gonna get, but I'm hoping to frame the tortoise under these beautiful branches. The light's a bit harsh now, and we only have limited time, but I think it could look cool as long as Morton gets out of my background. Don't know how well that worked, but I think it's okay. Such a beautiful animal. I basically just stayed with this one tortoise the whole time. I like the foreground. I like that there was a little bit of a darker background, and I've had it kind of all to myself. So this has been awesome. We've only had a half an hour to take pictures here, which I could literally spend all day here. And I think Morton's probably the same as well, but it's time to go. It's time to get onto the boat, get some lunch, and find our home for the next 4 days.
After dealing with a quick tortoise roadblock, we made it down to the port and eventually onto our yacht. We'll be staying on the Infinity, one of the newest and most impressive ships sailing tourists around these islands.
We made it onto our home, which is rocking and rolling a little bit. Jody, how do you feel? Do you like our home?
I like it, but it needs a dog.
It needs a dog, okay. A yacht with a dog. High standards. Let's check out the inside. Wow.
Enjoy.
Woohoo! Whoa. Jody, check out this room.
I don't think there's enough space.
So I'm gonna drop off my bag and we need to get lunch, but I wanna talk quick. Basically, on my tours, sometimes I can use my social media clout to get us upgrades. So sometimes on my tours we get bonuses. We basically paid for a mid-level ship and we got one of the luxury ships. This is 20 passengers. And this is our room, which is a suite. Most of the rooms look like this, although some of them are a little bit smaller than this. But we got a desk, there's a little sitting area, there's a huge, looks like a king-sized bed. We're rocking, by the way. I don't know if you'd noticed that. A huge bathroom with a shower. And then, of course, if you go out the sliding door, we've got a huge, absolutely massive veranda or balcony or whatever you call these things. I could be here and Jody's like a mile that way.
Can you hear me from here?
No, we can't hear you.
Our evening on the Infinity was mostly spent catching up on last-minute Wi-Fi, eating way too much food, and enjoying a perfect sunset before sailing off into the night. In the morning, there'll be more wildlife. Oh, so much more wildlife.
Okay, I'm gonna go jump the queue. Sorry, guys. We are at Dragon's Hill. We're heading out to land. This landing is awesome. There's lots of iguanas, especially here. Land iguanas, marine iguanas. The easiest wildlife photography mission continues here. Ya listo, gracias. Oy. Okay, let's cruise. Morton, are you excited for iguanas?
A lot.
That's the face of an excited man right there.
Excited, we cruise the Zodiacs back onto Santa Cruz Island. This landing, known as Dragon Hill, is home to so many iguanas that you need to watch where you step as you wander around. But there's so much more here than just the iguanas. As soon as we land, a pair of blue-footed boobies pose perfectly in front of a soft-lit sea. In the rocks, a Sally Lightfoot crab sheds the salt water from her colorful shell. And of course, the iguanas wander freely as we stick to the trails.
I mentioned that the Galapagos are the easiest wildlife photography place in the world. And I love it as an educational place. So we've got our photography group here, Jody, Morton, and I, and we're trying to teach them composition. Because a lot of times in wildlife photography, you don't have a whole lot of time to think about composition because things are moving. But here you got a ton of time to worry about composition, to plan composition, and to figure out things. So kind of the lesson I'm teaching people right now is to not think about the rules of composition if they know them. And if they don't know them, just follow the rule of does it look cool? Then we'll go from there. This afternoon I think we'll do a lesson on composition, and maybe I'll talk about some of the things I look for in wildlife composition as this episode continues. Yeah, we're here wandering Santa Cruz. We've already seen marine iguanas, lava lizards, blue-footed boobies, a lava gull that there's only 400 breeding pairs left in the world. And it's just phenomenal as usual.
There's obviously nowhere in the world like the Galapagos Islands. There's so many animals, and there's so much going on here that it's overwhelming. One thing I'm constantly trying to do here is isolate. I'm trying to simplify my images, keep the attention of the image on the animal, and I'm trying not to get distracted. or make images that have distractions.
So I was saying that the wildlife photography here is pretty easy, and that the challenge is actually that sometimes the animals aren't doing much and can be boring. But when they do something, anything, it can be really exciting. Like we have this land iguana and he's just hanging out, cooling off in the wind. And he yawned twice, but both times I missed it. But every time it yawns, everybody goes, ah, and tries to take the picture of the yawning iguana because that's something special, something different other than just, you know, the iguana laying down there. Morton said something to the group that I really liked, and that's that there's no bad light for wildlife photography. There's just different light and harsher light. And sometimes using that harsh light can make you a little bit more creative by underexposing and just getting like the key light ringing around the animal or a silhouette or things like that. And I like that about wildlife photography, that you can shoot it almost any time of day and get different styles of photos and force yourself to be creative. So I love that.
No, I didn't get my yawning iguana photo, but I did get some super shaky yawning B-roll and a nicely toned down image of the land iguana within the brush. We walked on through the cactus, stumbling across a lava lizard on a lava rock, before deciding to smash up my gear a little bit.
Just walking along the rocks essentially, and I have the 100 to 400 on, and it has two options like tight or smooth, and I had it on smooth to zoom better, and I bumped it with my leg and it zoomed out, and as I was walking scratched the front element right on one of the lava rocks, and it's not horrible, but there's a scratch right across the middle of my front of my element of my lens. Super annoyed right now, but that's life as a professional photographer. I've had this lens for over 2 years. I'll get back to Arizona in a couple weeks and hopefully they can fix the front element for not too much. That's the scratch right there.
I already know what you're gonna say. What's the difference between a scratch and all that dirt on your element? Yeah, I should clean my gear more often. The scratch is bad, and the dust is just as bad. But when shooting wide aperture long lens imagery, it shouldn't make much of a difference at all. It's gonna be once I get this lens back on backlit landscapes where I'll see the difference. In the meantime, it seems like there's no issue on this lava heron. And after lunch back on the Infinity as it repositioned to Batches Beach, we were back on the search for wildlife.
Shout out to James Popsis for letting me know that waterproof socks exist. We just did our first wet landing here on Batches Beach, and this is a beach that green sea turtles come to nest and lay eggs and stuff. There's not nesting season now, it's not for another month, but sometimes there are turtles this time of year because they're kind of location scouting for places to nest. So we're gonna go on a walk along the beach and see if we can spot turtle or turtle tracks, stuff like that. So let's walk.
On the soft white sand, we did spot a turtle nesting area with recent tracks. But the sand looked so good, I couldn't resist having a bit of a laydown.
So one of the things I really try to do with wildlife photography is I try to get to the eye level of the animal. Right here, we're on the beach. There's a couple marine iguanas walking right towards us. There's a bunch of Sally Lightfoot crabs off in the distance. If you shoot from the top down, it hides them in the landscape and it makes them look small. If you get to their eye level, it does two things. It one, makes them look normal. It makes them look big. And two, it creates like blurred out foreground at times, and it creates that depth in the image you really want. So I always try to get to the eye level, even if that eye level is in the sand, like it is right now, with my now scratched lens.
Getting low fills the frame with this meter-long iguana, giving him power and a personality. And getting low uses the sand and the horizon to create a frame for this small animal, big landscape image of the Sally Lightfoot crab.
Okay, so I think this video about the easiest wildlife photography location in the world is turning into a tips video, and I think that's okay. I got 2 quick tips. 1, don't forget the details of the animal. You don't need to show the whole animal, show the details. And second, don't cage the animal. And what I mean by that is don't crop too tight, especially around the head. Have dead space, negative space in the image to give somewhere for that animal to move in the frame in your imagination. A lot of really good wildlife photography is simply about creating a story and about making the viewer use their imagination to create their own story. So don't cage the animal and don't cage your viewer's imagination. Wildlife photography tip number 1 billion today. If you're comfortable, you're probably doing it wrong. Look at how Morton's sitting. What are you even doing?
No, I can show you. I need to get low, but I also need a support. So this is how we do it.
I've never ever seen Morton take a picture in a position that looks comfortable. But he always gets the best photos, so get uncomfortable. The final tip before I end this video is don't be afraid to experiment, especially places like this where the wildlife comes pretty easy. You're gonna have lots of chances to play around with new things and experiment with new ideas. So for example, long exposure and wildlife photography isn't exactly synonymous, but with these Sally Lightfoot crabs on the rocks, I played around with 1 and 2 second exposures just to see what would happen, and I love the results. And I'm happy with how today went in general. There's just so many wildlife photography options here that I could probably do, you know, like 40 photos a day that are share worthy, which is awesome. Now, this video is ending. It's Morton Helmer length almost, I think, but that's okay because it's been a fun 36 hours, and there's a lot more fun to come from here in the Galapagos Island. So hopefully I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.